Okay. Hi, Angela. So nice to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
A warm welcome to you. I'm just going to introduce you briefly, and then I have some questions. So you were a soldier in the USA Army, and then trained as a social worker and therapist, and now you're in the Medicating Normal team, and working with the outreach for the film.
Yep.
So I'm really, really happy to have you with us, because you're in the film and you're still working with spreading it and the knowledge, of course, the beautiful knowledge of the film in the world.
And the knowledge of hard-earned experience, learning all about these issues. Yeah.
Yes. So, well, I watched the film quite a few times now for various reasons, but I remember once we talked and you said you've been watching it, of course, also a lot of times, and that you still discover new things every time you watch it.
Yes.
Yeah. And for me, one thing that I found was really impacting for me yesterday, I think, when I watched it, was when you said how it was almost like you had a breakthrough when it came to the shifting of realizing that what you thought had been the drugs or your mental illness or diagnosis or whatever, it wasn't that, it was the drugs.
Yes. Oh, that's huge. I was just talking about this yesterday, that I started when I came off of the medications, it wasn't a way that was humane. Let's just put it that way. The last drug I was taken off immediately overnight in the hospital. And I asked the doctor, am I going to experience withdrawal? And he said, maybe you'll be a little dizzy, but it won't be long. He kind of blew it off. And then about 6 days later, it was like the gates of hell opened, and I was in this altered state. My whole body was on fire. Like this thing that I didn't know existed just landed on me. And so, of course, I had to read. I started just Googling things like benzodiazepine withdrawal, antidepressant withdrawal. And I saw all these things that I had no idea about. So for the next few months, I was reading all these things. I read Bob Whitaker's Anatomy and Epidemic. I read Peter Gurcha's work. I read all kinds of books and articles and all over Mad in America, and then there's just like this opening up that, wait, maybe you're not mentally ill. They were wrong. All this nightmare that's happened over 15 years, I slowly lost my femininity. I lost touch with relationships. I didn't want to go out, but all of that was told to me, that's your mental illness. I remember not having good feelings, and they said, oh, that's your mental illness. You are just depressed all the time. And then looking back and then reading all these things, it was like my mind just flowered open. Like, wait, they were wrong. This was all the drugs. This wasn't me. Because there was a part of me that knew something is wrong with this. So what is that part that's knowing? That's the part that is not affected, but anyway, yes. So it was a huge awakening.
Yeah, and it's such a impactful way, the way you're putting it. It becomes really clear how the drug or being put on drugs, it's not only the drug, it's so much more.
Yeah. Well, even while it's happening, it was so slow and perceptible. It's almost like you don't notice. And so then 10 years goes by and you look back of who you were before you were put on drugs, and you're like, wait, I was not like this. And that is what I am now, is not in the DSM. It doesn't say your mental illness will progress to a point where you don't shower and you don't leave your house and you don't, care about your sexuality and you don't have sexual feelings. That is not in the DSM. That's not the progression of an illness. That's something else. But it happens so slowly, you don't notice. And unless you have someone, I guess, in your life that's close to you that says, why are you acting like this? This is not who you are. How am I supposed to know? I just think that I'm just listening to the doctor and taking the meds and thinking that they're working. I even think in the film, when I say that I was on 17 drugs at the same time, I even think these combinations of drugs take away your ability to even know that there's something wrong with that, or take away your ability to know I'm not acting like the person I was. So it definitely changes who you are. And some people like that effect and some people don't. And some people need that effect for a long time. And, but they're not clear about this is what it's going to do.
Mm. So once you started getting off the meds, was it a slow progression as well when you started to kind of find your own self again? Was that coming like slowly, or how was that going?
I'm still in that process. It's so weird. I remember saying, I think I was about 2 years off, and I remember saying, I want to go outside. Because before it was like, that was not even on the radar to go outside and try to live a life or go to a concert or go to a park or go for a walk. Like those were not even things that were on, my ability to do every day. My world was wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, watch TV, take your medicine, go to the therapist. There wasn't room for, I want to have friends, I want to go outside, I want to go to a park. Nothing like that was ever in my mind. So about 2 years off, I had the small, I want to, like, I didn't really want to, but I wanted to want to, like, I think I want to, I don't know. And then I bought an RV when I was about 3 years off, or 3.5 years off. And then I started to travel. And part of that traveling was like, what do I like to do? I want to go out into the universe, and I'm curious again. And I want to see what the world is like. And I want to meet different people, and I want to go to new places. And hopefully that will help my brain kind of repair all the damage that has been done, but like now I'm learning things like, oh, I really like national parks in the United States, and I really like camping. Like I didn't know I would like that. I like to go to antique stores and just wander around. I don't buy anything, but like those things were not even part of my life or even on the menu. Now I can feel the love of my friends. Before I didn't even know it was missing.
And yeah, that reminds me also what Dave says in the movie at a certain point when he says, I can remember that I love my wife.
Yeah.
I know it, but I can't feel it.
Can't feel it. But yeah, it's slowly, I'm 5 years off of everything now, and it doesn't feel the way it used to feel, but it feels like it's coming back. Like things are, like I can appreciate small things. I remember I went to this really beautiful national park in Virginia, kind of by Washington, D.C., and it was up in the mountain, and I stood outside and I just saw all these plants, and there was like bees and bumblebees and flies and mosquitoes and all these little busy pollinators were all around these plants. And I just stood there like, wow, like this is amazing, and so I could feel that, but I would not have, I could not feel anything like that on the meds. Zero. Even coming off was so horrific. The withdrawal process was like immense suffering that is completely inhumane. So I can feel things again. It's just new and it's different. And I feel sad that I missed 15 years, system. And so then you have to process that grief of, I listened to my doctor and I was betrayed, by the system. And I don't want to be a victim of that. Like, I don't want to give them one more minute, but it still happened, and it's part of my process of getting my life back now.
Yeah. So how is that experience of looking back at the 15 years? Is it more like a fog all of those years, or can you still feel that was part of my life, if you see what I mean, even though they were really difficult?
A lot of it is erased. Like I don't remember it. Like things like, I remember reading a lot of books trying to help myself, and I could never really figure it out. Like I was reading all the spirituality, self-help, and I would do all these things like trying to fix myself, but now I look back and think there was nothing wrong with you. You were trying to fix a ghost, but these people were telling you that there's something so wrong with you, and you listen to them because I didn't feel okay, but a lot of it is like gaps of time. A lot of it, like things happen where I like won a really prestigious award, and I went on stage and I had this beautiful dress and my hair was done and I didn't feel a thing. And I remember standing there like, shouldn't I be feeling something? Like, I don't feel anything. Why? I don't feel proud of myself. I don't feel like I earned it. But it wasn't like a worthiness. It was like a numbness, I also think back and think like I lost my 30s, all the dating years, the, you know, getting married and having babies. That was not a thought, you know, that was erased. So there's a lot of loss, you know, and I think if I really, part of my busyness, I think like I'm busy, I'm always doing this film stuff, I'm always like creating content on the website and trying to, you know, fix things. Part of that busyness, I think, is for me to not really sit in that, because if I really think about what I lost and what was done to me and what was done to my brain and how I was treated, like that is not a good place for me to be. I don't want to, I don't think I'm ready to completely feel that. And I, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, so in small parts, not the whole.
Not the whole thing. No.
Yeah, got it. And what would you say, maybe, I mean, this is of course your experience, but also I guess anyone who wants to taper down or quit, what is the support that we need in order to do that?
That is a hard question, because, you know, sometimes people say, well, Angie, you were a soldier, you're different. And I'm like, no, there's a place in you that is so strong that will see you through this. But it's like, it takes an enormous amount of strength and like resilience and fortitude and determination. And almost like you have to get angry, like, no, I am doing this, whatever it's going to take, however hard it is, with support or without support. And some people are up to that challenge and some people are not. And it's a personal choice, and I don't believe everybody wants to come off or should come off. Like that is a personal thing, but I can tell you that it has tested every ounce of my being to do this and to get through. And still today, like I still live with these fears of like the medical system, or fears of coronavirus. If I get coronavirus and it is severe, will I have to go in a hospital? Will they give me medications that harm me? I live with that fear every single day. I live with, you know, don't do things too dangerous, because if you fall and break your ankle, that would, you know, you might need surgery and you might be administered drugs that could affect you. So it's not, I feel bad that I was ever, anybody who's ever put in this situation, because it's not as easy as just take a pill and your problems go away. There is a lifetime of reverberation that I have to live with now because of those decisions. Uninformed decisions, I would say.
Yeah, because as you described in the movie, it's like when this started, you were in shock.
Yes.
So I guess just even if you would have had really good information about the drugs that they were putting you on, wouldn't maybe be able to process it, as it were, in that situation.
And I just think, like I said in the film, I was 24 and I was scared. I was just scared. I literally remember landing, like I was in Baghdad, Iraq one day, getting shot at, being on a convoy, trying to get me to the airport to get medically evacuated, and me thinking I'm going to die. Like, I'm not going to make it home. The next day I was in Germany. People invited me to go have a beer, you know, and then the next day our unit is hit and I can't hold that experience because it was so overwhelming. All these feelings at the same time: anger, fear, scared, I'm back, relief that I'm back in Germany, all these things at the same time. And I imagine it would be the same with somebody that lost a child. You have grief, shock, despair, you know, emergency, all these feelings at the same time, and you don't have the inner resources to handle it, or you don't have people around you that say, it's okay, come here, let me hug you, let me hold you, take a rest, you know, it's going to be okay. You know, that's what we all need. I think it's not, here's a pill, get to your therapist this week. No offense to therapists, you know, but like we do like the opposite of what we need. Like, we need each other. I needed love. We all need this love and this like safety. Like, it's going to be okay. So just the shock of like, I'm in Baghdad, now I'm in Germany, now my soldier is almost dead and he's telling me a story and he's 18, and like, yeah, I lost my train of thought now, but like it was just, yes, it was a shock. But I remember, this is what I was going to say. I remember they said, you know, here's your medication. And then they said, you have post-traumatic stress. And I remember they gave me a pamphlet, and I read the pamphlet and I was like, oh my God, I have this brain disease. You know, like I felt like now my brain is infected and I'm just like screwed up forever. And then I start looking at the symptoms and I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have hypervigilance. What is that? And what does this symptom mean? And it's almost like I started looking for it. Like, is that what I is that what, so it's like, is there some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy when you read about this disorder and you have these people telling you that you have this thing, it becomes another thing into your identity, and then how we become that patient. And then you got to go to your therapist. And I always say that like taking pills every day tells you something about yourself. Like every day for 15 years, I'm swallowing things, and I'm monitoring my body for symptoms, and I'm going to tell an authority about that. Like that does something to you.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit shocked to hear that you got like a diagnosis of PTSD, because that was only a matter of days we're talking about here then.
I think they called it acute stress disorder at first, and then a couple months later, then now it's post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I guess that's also what the diagnosis does to us. That is like reading the horoscope or something. It's a human. We want to find meaning in that. So that's also how we create our identity around it.
Yeah. And for a 24-year-old, I look back at that kid. I was just a kid. Yeah.
So how was it coming back and coming back to the States after all that?
I remember it was Christmas time and my family, no offense to them. I'm just offending everyone today. No, they didn't say, like, nobody said, "Are you okay?" Like there was no parade. There, you see all these parades and these homecomings where you run into the airport into the arms of your loved ones. It was nothing like that. Zero. I remember I was just at Christmas. I was really quiet. I was really, reserved. Nobody said like, "Are you okay?" I think they thought, you're a female soldier, you were working at a desk. And I was not working at a desk. I was, driving trucks around very dangerous places, and bad guys were looking at me like they wanted to kill me, no. And then it was just like, go back to life. And I went back to work in the Army, and then they wanted me to get redeployed on a second tour. And then it was kind of like, that's when things started falling apart. I had earaches and I was still sick. I like whatever sickness I had in Iraq never really resolved. So then they said, okay, you're not able to redeploy. We're going to medically retire you. But, at 24 years old, being told you're disabled, like you're never going to work for the rest of your life. You're never going to have children. It's not a good idea. You're never going to go to school. You're not allowed to be around soldiers anymore, weapons, like time for you to go home. That is devastating to my identity, because my identity was the Army, was a hard worker. And it was like overnight from a psychiatrist's pen. That was it.
Wow. Yeah, that's brutal, really. Yeah. But they were wrong, though.
They were wrong. I get that. But wait, that's not to say that I still don't have I think about it all the time. Like if I were to tell a therapist what I experience on a daily basis, I would still have all those same diagnoses. And they probably add a few more, but I just choose not to talk to those people. Like I talk to friends about that. I do community service about that. I have my own coping with that. And sometimes the coping, I cry in the bathtub. Sometimes I have panic attacks and I sit in my car and I freak out. But like, I know that there's not a pill for that. There's no easy answer. There's no diagnosis that's going to like fix that. I might get temporary cathartic relief from a therapy appointment or something, but I have to deal with it in my own ways right now, in my own terms.
And I think what you say there before, when you said what is most healing to us might be the acceptance of, one human to another in the form of love or support or. And I think that what many people, many of the experts are saying in the movie is that suddenly what is a normal experience of being human suddenly is not normal anymore.
True. Yeah, I look back and say my reaction to war was the normal reaction. And that's what I mean when I say like, wait, there was nothing wrong with me. That was all those symptoms are your body's way of keeping you alive. Like to be hyper vigilant and to like be checking outside to make sure that nothing's going to happen, like that is keeping me safe. So my reaction was normal. And they always say that thing, but yeah, it's normal at the beginning, but once it starts impairing your functioning, then it's not normal anymore. So who's moving that line? That's capitalism telling me, like, if I don't get back to work and get my job and let's go, okay, you grieved in long enough, time to get back to work. That's ridiculous. But I also think, like, not to say that I want to suffer forever, but like there was a natural healing process that could have been occurring, that those things would have calmed down. My nervous system would have calmed down. I needed some sleep and, a few showers and, someone to love me, and that could have resolved. Instead, 15 years of making it chronic. That's what it felt like. Taking those meds every day, for some reason, those memories could not go back in their place, the place that they should have been. It was like everything was present. And then when you're going to therapy and they're constantly okay, let's talk about your trauma, let's work on your trauma, it's like you're keeping my trauma present. I'm trying to put it away, but I also think we're not honest about it. Like when you're traumatized, whatever way that looks for you, war, rape, domestic abuse, I mean, you can be traumatized as a 4-year-old when your parent yells at you and scares you. It doesn't have to be much, it depends on the person. We don't say, like, you might not ever get over this. This might be with you forever. You might do all the therapies, take all the drugs, and it will still be there. And why can't we be honest about that?
That's a really good question. I agree with you.
That you can try every trauma therapy there is out there. We don't understand the nervous system. We don't even know 1% about the brain. And you still might be affected 20 years from now. There's no easy answer for life. There's not. And I just wish, hindsight is 2020, but that's kind of where I am now. Like, you might not ever get over the betrayal of the system that you went to try to help you. And so now you have more trauma, and it just is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. And when you say that, that's really thought-provoking to me. And it makes me think that in a way, even though when we start to talk about trauma, some of us therapists or those of us who has trauma think it's kind of a lesser harsh diagnosis, if you see what I mean, but it's still a diagnosis.
It's still, and that's what my fear is. They're all pushing for ACEs, adverse childhood experiences in the United States. Like, we want to do early screening of trauma in childhood. And I say, like, but why? I mean, of course you want to know if the kid is being traumatized to maybe stop the trauma, but what are you going to do? Give them a label of trauma and then medicate their trauma and say that that's what caused the chemical imbalance? Like, no, leave it alone. I think we need to stop traumatizing each other. I just told my sisters, like, your only job is to not let your children become traumatized. That is your job on this planet. And I can see it in their eyes. I'm just really sensitive to that now. Like, I can see it when a person has been traumatized. You can see it if you're really present with someone. They're scared. They have this scared look on their face. Their eyes are darker. You can see the sadness. So I'm scared. I hope that trauma doesn't become yet another label that we just throw around and use as, that person was traumatized. It's like a slur,
It is. And when you say that, it's something it's been on my mind a little bit, the thought of, okay, we need to do trauma-informed therapies, but it's still a label. It's still a treatment that you give someone for being human.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction to think, like, oh, wait, there's a cause, there's a reason behind the person. It makes sense. It does bring compassion when you think to yourself, someone with intense schizophrenia was probably abused as a child and his context drove him crazy. That helps, bring some awareness to the situation rather than just say, he's got a chemical imbalance, give him some pills, he's dangerous. So it's a step in the right direction, but I don't think it's, it's a trendy thing right now. It's not the end all. What does that mean? I don't know. Just stop traumatizing each other.
Yeah, that's so true. stop doing, you know, just better contexts, better contact, better connections and meetings. Yeah. Okay, so it's time to finish off a little bit, but I want to say thank you so much for sharing. And the first time I watched the movie, I said now I watched it a lot of times, but the first impact I had from the movie and seeing you, well, the way you shared your experience, it was so strong to me. I left that first screening like, wow, this Angie is someone I would like to know. Yeah, so I think you really, really come across and you help a lot of people.
Thank you. I'm glad that that helps me have meaning now. You know, it's gonna make me cry. That my suffering wasn't for nothing, you know, that if I could help somebody, you know, because the suffering is just so immense. Like if you could, I always used to think like if I could just let somebody feel it for 5 minutes, what it's like to come off the way that I did, it was like hell. And it just makes me sad how many thousands of people that are going through that.
Yeah.
They don't have support and they don't have understanding, and people think they're just crazy and their whole life is ruined, you know. And what does that do to society? It's just immense.
It's immense, and it really is it's a level of society, nation, worldwide problem.
Yeah, it's all over. I mean, I even help a person in Afghanistan who came off a benzodiazepine. It took him about 18 months to heal, and a lot of Americans wouldn't talk to him because of the language gap, you know. And I'm really patient with that. It doesn't bother me at all. So I've watched him heal, you know. And he says, Angie, everybody here is on medication. Nobody knows about withdrawal. You know, yesterday we did a screening in Israel. I did a screening in Brazil with Matt in Brazil, and they said, you know, we don't have peer groups. There's no peer, what is it, like movements. There's no organization for people that are coming off drugs, you know. So it's a worldwide problem all over the place. It's just really scary.
Yeah, it is. But small steps towards something else.
Yeah, I can't hold that either. That's a lot to hold. Like the whole world needs help. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But just to say, like, these are well-meaning people like me that just had a life situation, depression, anxiety, trauma, and you went to someone for help, and then the help turned out to harm, you know. And we were all well-meaning. We you know, I just wanted help, and that's what we're told to do, is go to the doctor, and that doesn't always work out for everyone, you know.
No.
Or it works for a while and then it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop recording.